All right, I don't know if you guys can hear me out there. Please let me know if the audio is coming through. I'm a little bit worried that the BitChute audio is not going to come through. So I got sent this thing allegedly. Wait, how do I put the chat on the air? Give me 1 second. Overlay. No, set up. Chat overlay. Where's the chat overlay? Chat overlay. There we go. Okay. If you want to join, just click on the link in the description. You'll be able to get on. This is going to be a BitChute video, so I want to know, make sure you guys can hear the audio. So check. I'm just going to check this myself as well. I should be hearing the video.
The alleged infection rates were already dropping.
But my, for some reason, Facebook is not showing. I'm probably going to be censored for doing this. You know, even if you're on the side of science, YouTube and Facebook are so crazy. How do I put the chat on the air? Give me 1 second. Overlay. No, I hear it clicking on and off. But my, for some reason, Facebook is not showing. I'm probably going to be censored for doing this. You know, even if you're on the side of science. Okay, I'm getting clicks and pops and dropouts all over the place, but I think this is going to be okay. I've got to turn up. I have to turn them up because, like, I know I'm poisoning the well already, but like all conspiracy videos, this thing is already, it's like they got the audio all messed up, and it's just, you can't hear it, so it sounds like I'm talking too loud. At the same time, I'm going to be lacing a wheel up on my bike at the same time, which I'm not good at. So who knows what's going to happen here, but you know, we're going to be reviewing this anti-vax video here. But why am I still hearing it clicking? Hold on. Make sure that I'm not playing something in the back. I'm hearing clicking all over the place. I'm using this here. In fact, I'll show you. I'm using this. Remember we went through this crazy routing here. So 12 makes OBS monitor version. USB interface OBS monitor version. This is how I'm doing the routing, so who knows what's going to go on. I'd like to turn up BitChute. I don't know that I can. Like I said, and like all conspiracy videos, these guys are going to be having like crazy audio problems and stuff. But hopefully you can hear it. So I'm just going to turn. I'm going to turn my speaking volume down. And hopefully that'll do good enough so you guys can just turn up and hopefully you can hear me. Let me know how the audio is out there. Sorry about this, and sorry there's always a hassle on the setup side. Hey, Yvonne. Okay, let me play this. So, you know, one of my friends concerned about getting the vaccine and had this video, but yeah, I don't poison the well. And listen, there's been so much dumb censorship by allegedly my side. My side is the side of science, reason, and rationality, and my side has been just a priori, just because, like, oh, maybe Trump said something, then it must be wrong. No, Trump breathes air. You think it's wrong to breathe air? So you got to give these things a chance on their own merit. That said, when something starts out as Second Nuremberg Tribunal, crimes against humanity, and has a picture of Bill Gates and Anthony Fauci and somebody else. Is that douchebag from the WHO? Let me see. What is the guy's name? Yeah. Okay. So that's who that is. Okay. So here's the problem. This is Tedros, Dr. Tedros, whatever, from the World Health Organization. Now, just because I'm on the side of science, just because I'm on the side of reason, rationality, I'm on Dr. Fauci's side for the most part. I'm definitely on Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation side when it comes to vaccines. Not so much with how Windows is starting to turn into Mac. That's a real problem. But this Dr. Ted douchebag right here, allegedly for the World Health Organization, is a puppet of Red China. You call me a conspiracy theorist all you want, but the WHO lied over and over for China at the beginning of this. For Red China, I should say. I consider, Taiwan is free China. The World Health Organization has been a piece of crap throughout this whole thing. And the amount of apologetics coming from my side over China's handling of this, over lying to us at the beginning, over sticking a guy in jail. Do you guys remember Dr. Li Weifeng? Dr. Li... I want you guys to remember the picture of this hero. This is a hero. This is somebody who died to get the word out. Okay? And this is who the Dr. Ted there in that picture is defending. It's people who jailed this doctor for telling the truth. Okay? So this is why there's conspiracies out there. This is why idiots exist. This is why there's anti-vaxxers, because people on our side, people who should know better, are running apologetics for this. Look at this guy's face. This is a hero. This is a martyr, a true martyr, not some guy who said he heard a talking snake throw magical fruit at him and then killed himself. That's bull. This is a real hero right here. And this is why, one second, I gotta... This is why these conspiracies exist, and this is why I'm not on your side when you are talking about the World Health Organization. To hell with the World Health Organization. Scums. Complete scums. Hey, caller. So anyway, so that's who we got. Bill and Melinda Gates, Bill Gates anyway. So you don't know, he doesn't just own Windows or Microsoft or whatever. He has done a lot to end polio and river blindness in the world. I think he's a little bit wrong about some things, especially live versus synthesized polio vaccine. But that's an academic argument. And he has his reasons. It's a really hard one to go. Fauci lied to us about masks. He knew better. It was on the CDC website since forever. If masks aren't available, make your own. Dr. What's his face? Fake Dr. Mike Tyson, the ecstatic guy, former whatever it was, general medical whatever dude, who got busted in Kapiolani Park for breaking quarantine over here in Hawaii. He lied about masks. Fauci lied about masks. Fauci did a little bit too much apologetics about Red China too, as far as I know. Well, okay, BBB, if the CCP apologized for jailing this hero later, I don't care. They shouldn't have done it in the first place. You should not be jailed for telling the truth, ever. I mean, that's just nonsense, So to hell with those guys. So anyway, with all that babbling, and remember, the well is already poisoned by just having this thing. Don't put Dr. Fauci in the same room as this Dr. Ted douchebag. Definitely don't put Bill Gates in there. I have my own problems with Bill Gates, but never mind. Let's just go on.
Hello, I am Rainer Fulmich, and I have been admitted to the bar in Germany and in California for 26 years. I have been practicing law primarily as a trial lawyer against fraudulent corporations such as Deutsche Bank, formerly one of the world's largest and most respected banks, today one of the most toxic criminal organizations in the world. VW, one of the world's largest and most respected car manufacturers, today notorious for its giant diesel fraud. And Kühne Nagel, the world's largest shipping company. We're suing them in a multi-billion-dollar bribery case.
Gotcha.
I'm also one of 4 members of the German Corona Investigative Committee. Since July 10th, 2020, this committee has been listening to a large number of international scientists and experts' testimony to find answers to questions about the corona crisis, which more and more people worldwide are asking. All the above-mentioned cases of corruption and fraud committed by the German corporations pale in comparison in view of the extent of the damage that the corona crisis has caused and continues to cause. This corona crisis, according to all we know today, must be renamed a corona scandal, and those responsible for it must be criminally prosecuted and sued for civil damages. On a political level, everything must be done to make sure that no one will ever again be in a position of such power as to be able to defraud humanity or to attempt to manipulate us with their corrupt agendas. And for this reason, I will now explain to you how and where an international network of lawyers will argue this biggest tort case ever, the corona fraud scandal, which has meanwhile unfolded into probably the greatest crime.
All right, let's hear what the fraud is. You got enough? You guys, you're lawyers. You did some cool stuff. You're gonna do some cool stuff. It's a bad thing. Hitler eats cats. Let's go.
Crime against humanity ever committed. Crimes against humanity were first defined in connection with the Nuremberg trials, after World War II that is, when they dealt with the main war criminals of the Third Reich.
Oh my God.
Crimes against humanity are today regulated in Section 7 of the International Criminal Code. The three major questions to be answered in the context of a judicial approach to the corona scandal are: 1, is there a corona epidemic, or is there only a PCR test pandemic?
Oh,
Specifically,
God.
does a
Come on.
positive PCR test result mean that the person tested is infected with COVID-19, or does it mean absolutely nothing?
That's a false dichotomy. Let's start right there. I don't know if he's saying that those are the only two choices, but a positive PCR test just means that you are showing that you are carrying a sequence. It could be, could be in your skin, could be shedded. You may not have it inside you anymore. All it does is show that there's a certain protein sequence present in your body, on your body, somewhere in your, if they did the nose swab, they see that protein sequence. That's all it says. Doesn't mean you got coronavirus right now. May not even mean you had it. The PCR test just says that you had the protein. So you could theoretically say that no matter how many times you showed positive for that, you never had coronavirus. That's okay. But that's why you have to look at some other symptoms as well. And it doesn't really matter because, like we say, so if you guys weren't aware, Michael Mina was probably the biggest advocate of this, was trying to get away from these super sensitive, perfect, allegedly gold standard tests, because what really matters is whether or not you are in the infective phase likely to spread it. And so you don't really need a test that's as that sensitive as the PCR test. But that doesn't mean that coronavirus doesn't exist. So
Connection with the COVID-19 infection.
let me skip back a tiny bit. And I haven't,
Person tested
no
is
internet.
infected with COVID-19, or does it mean absolutely nothing in connection with the COVID-19 infection?
It does not that it means absolutely nothing either. You guys, can you let me know? The internet's going in and out. Let me know if you guys are hearing this or not. Sorry about that.
2, do the so-called anti-corona measures, such as the lockdown, mandatory face masks, social distancing, and quarantine regulations, serve to protect the world's population from corona? Or do these measures serve only to make people panic so that they believe, without asking any questions, that their lives are in danger, so that in the end, the pharmaceutical and tech industries can generate huge profits from the sale of PCR tests and
Okay, was that another false dichotomy? Let's listen to that again. Sorry.
serve to protect the world's population from corona? Or do these measures serve only to make people panic so they believe, without...
How about a little bit of both? These measures... Do I even have to say it? We have a science experiment going that shows this perfectly. We have the entire world aside from New Zealand, and we have New Zealand, okay? So in one extreme, we really did some real lockdowns. That's New Zealand. New Zealand is doing just fine. New Zealand had very few cases. New Zealand kept everything going once they had stomped it out. And there you go. Or we have Korea, where despite an insane population density that I would kill myself before I was in that kind of thing. Despite an absolutely pandemic spreading insane population density and very early cases, they managed to keep it down. Their numbers were ridiculously low. It's not that they had completely locked down. They did a lot of testing and they did a lot of smart stuff. So this guy's just putting up a conspiracy about how pharmacy is going to sell tests. We couldn't make tests fast enough. Nobody's making money off tests right now because we couldn't build them quick enough. They ended up being useless because we can't get enough testing done. If we could have gotten Michael Mina's quick tests done that were less accurate but more relevant to what getting schools and work back and off open, maybe then somebody would have made some money. DARPA's Pentagon implantable microchip. I'll take a look, but I have no idea. This looks. Let me just let me go on.
Without asking any questions, that their lives are in danger.
So this is just like the giant red pill straw man right here. Listen.
Corona? Or do these measures serve only to make people panic so that they believe without asking any questions that their lives are in danger, so that in the end the pharmaceutical and tech industries can generate huge profits from the sale of PCR tests, antigen and antibody tests and vaccines, as well as the harvesting of our genetic fingerprints? And 3, is it true?
No, okay. Do I even need to say anything about that part? That was just total conspiracy theory nonsense. This is the same anti-fluoride GMO idiot crap you hear everywhere. It's not even really worth talking about. And hey, nobody, I doubt that anybody really hates the part of the tech industry that uses SJWs as useful idiots to keep moving along. And go ahead and call that a conspiracy all you want. But yeah, I hate those guys. So I don't mind if you're attacking them, but this is just conspiracy theory nonsense here.
That the German government was massively lobbied, more so than any other country, by the chief protagonists of this so-called corona pandemic, Mr. Drosten, virologist at Charité Hospital in Berlin, Mr. Wheeler, veterinarian and head of the German equivalent of the CDC, the RKI, and Mr. Tedros, head of the World Health Organization, or WHO, because of Germany is known as a particularly disciplined country and was therefore to become a role model for the rest of the world.
Germany didn't do jack diddly squat in terms of behavior compared to Korea or New Zealand. You guys, hold on. You guys are full of crap. Okay, so already, you guys are going to talk about Germany being like the role model for how to behave. Germany behaves like crap. I'm not going to make any apologies for Germany's behavior in this or how they've behaved with the alleged migrant crisis going on of when fighting age males are breaking through the borders of all the Europe from wherever they're coming from. I'm not apologizing for Germany. Germany has handled most situations lately like crap. They went full anti-science after Fukushima. So this has nothing to do with the coronavirus. So get out of here with this German crap. And I'm not going to defend Dr. Tedros from the WHO. I already told you why, because he's full of crap.
For its strict and, of course, successful adherence to the corona measures.
They didn't adhere to crap in Germany. Look at their numbers compared to, like America's supposed to be the worst out of all this, but Germany's not that far behind. Germany, UK.
Answers to these questions are urgently needed because the allegedly new and highly dangerous coronavirus has not caused any excess mortality anywhere in the world, and certainly not here in Germany.
This excess mortality myth, I hope I don't even have to go into it. This has been debunked so many bajillions of times already. If you don't know about excess mortality, they're trying to say that we're not seeing more deaths than normal during this certain amount of time, not taking into account the lockdowns, not taking into account that, hey, we've had so little flu because of all this that, and people actually making some smart choices. The flu, when everybody says, oh, it's just the flu kills a hell of a lot of people every year. And this time we've actually had one of the best flu seasons we've ever had since we've been tracking this. Excess deaths is stupid. That's not trying to. Excess deaths is kind of like the ontological argument for God. You're trying to define a phenomenon into existence by what they used to call lies, damn lies, and statistics. So it's hopefully if we really have to go through the excess deaths thing, let me know and I'll get back to it. But I hope that you guys are past that. We're barely into this video and we've just seen nonsense so far.
But the anti-corona measures, whose only basis are the PCR test results.
No. The anti-corona measures' only basis weren't the PCR test results. They're epidemiological reasons. That there's all sorts of factors that played into why we had certain anti-corona measures. Anybody who actually knows this stuff knows that the PCR test, you could potentially find PCR on stuff forever later. That doesn't even matter. It's not a PCR test that matters here. It's everything else that's happened. It's people dying for no reason. It's people who are sitting on ventilators. Was nobody sitting on a ventilator? Or wait, I'm sure somebody's going to tell me. Yeah, let me just wait for this. This is going to get interesting. I tried to come into this video with an open mind, and already we're just listening to this nut job here. I almost feel like I'm watching that. What's her name? The crazy lady that sells alleged fuel magnets that make your car, like you put a magnet in your gas tank and you get 10 miles more per gallon. That had everybody convinced. The hexavalent chromium lady. What the hell was her name? Oh man, Julia Roberts played her in a movie. Yeah, that's what it sounds like. We're listening to Ambulance Chasing Idiot Lawyer. Here we go.
Which are in turn all based on the German Drosten test.
No. Oh, man. Yeah, no flu since March 2020, according to. Thank you, BBB. That's that. You know what? It's funny because over here, it really was like usually, and we got so many old people here. They croak like crazy every year of flu season, and. I don't even want to say it. It's a little bit hard for people to get into the elder care homes right now because our old people refuse to die like they usually do. So, yeah, it's pretty crazy. Okay, let me just go on here.
Have, in the meantime, caused the loss of innumerable human lives and have destroyed the economic existence of countless companies and individuals worldwide.
Okay. I'm not going to get into the economy side of this because what we're finding out now is that this disease has very long-term consequences. I think you guys have seen the college athlete studies where something like a third of college athletes who caught this thing, the healthiest kids in the world, really, right, will not be allowed to play college sports anymore because of organ, lung, and heart damage that they've suffered. Even the asymptomatic ones, and it's starting to look like the asymptomatic ones may have suffered this worse. And there's actually a couple good reasons for that. But so if you want to talk about economic damage, the damage that we're going to see, the long-term damage, okay, first of all, for paying for all these people sitting on ventilators, all these hospital visits, all this other stuff, the long-term economic damage that we're not even seeing it. We could have locked down from day one and just given people $1,000 a month or whatever, and would probably have come out ahead because we're going to be paying for this for so long. At the beginning of this thing, we thought that kids couldn't get it, and now it's turning out that kids who didn't show any symptoms at all are going to have long-term health effects. There's a chance that we might be going down in IQ. Of course, for people who ended up on ventilators, it's very likely they lost a lot of oxygen. But actually for kids who caught this during their developmental phase, the long-term costs of this disease are insane, and we don't even know what it's going to be. The cost of keeping all these people in hospitals is insane. We're going to be paying for that. So just imagine if we hadn't locked down, and remember that this thing does not kill that many people, right? Anybody who's arguing by the death rate is not paying attention. That's not what science has been saying. We're not worried so much about the death rate. It sucks. It's ridiculous that we've lost so many people over this, but it's not the death rate that's the problem. It's the life rate. That's the economic cost to this thing. So let me go on. I'm supposed to be rebuilding my wheel as we go, but I have to hit stop every time this guy talks.
In Australia, for example, people are thrown
Sorry,
into
hold
prison
on
if
one
they do not
second.
wear a
I gotta
mask
go
or
move
do
my
not
thing.
wear-
Sweetie, I can move my car. Sorry, I forgot about that. No, you have to take off your thing and stuff. No, sweetie. No, but we gotta go to. Sweetie, I'm sorry. Mike called. He's in a panic about taking the vaccine because he decides to do this video. Conspiracy. I told him to get that address. Not as bad, but those are the only two that have any issue right now. But he said, he can get a flu shot for this. No, not like that. That's being there. Yeah. But this video is just this nonsense from this on every other season, but you can't hear it. I'm sorry, sweetie. I love you. I forgot that. These video responses are fun. They're just yeah. Am I waiting on it? What, Jeremy's house? We should just go there and look at it. Oh, this is. I'm sorry, Steve. Am I going to see Jeremy? You mean? That's my thing. All right, sorry guys, I parked my car right in everybody's way. So let me, like I said, I'm supposed to be rebuilding a wheel right now. Here we go. Okay, let's get back to this guy.
wear it properly as deemed by the authorities. In the Philippines, people who do not wear a mask or do not wear it properly in this sense are getting shot in the head.
Wait. Is that true? We sure have a lot of Filipinos here. Are they really shooting people in the head who aren't wearing masks? Let's see what we can find on Google here. Philippines shot in the head for not wearing a mask. You know, this is the kind of thing that makes you a lot of money on social media, so I'm sure people have printed it. Man shot dead for flouting coronavirus rules. Police in the Philippines have shot a man dead. Holy crap. So Duarte threatened people. That's okay. Drunk man shot dead, man shot dead. Is this the same guy? Man shot dead. Police, okay. Looks like we didn't hear the whole story. Police in the Philippines have shot dead a man for not wearing a mask and provoking officers. President Duarte has ordered police and military to kill anyone violating quarantine or causing trouble during the pandemic. Holy crap. You know, maybe this guy is telling the truth. That doesn't mean that the vaccine doesn't work or whatever, but that's pretty crazy. I didn't hear this. I mean, we just had friends sitting in the Philippines just now. Is this a real news source or what? DW made for minds. About DW. Unbiased information for free minds. Yeah, who knows? That's pretty crazy, man. Al Jazeera, The Sun, The Independent. Here we go. CBS says that Duarte said that. Not that I trust CBS, but at least step up arrest, shoot them dead, risk beatings and humiliation. I don't know. You know, there could be some truth to this, but that doesn't really have anything to do with the science here. But interesting claim.
Let me first give you a summary of the facts that they present as they present themselves today.
All right.
The most
Yay,
important thing in
finally
a
some
lawsuit
facts.
is to establish the facts, that is, to find out what actually happened.
Yes.
That is because the application of the law always depends on the facts at issue.
Wait, I don't care about the law.
If I
You
wanna
made some science
prosecute
claims, so
someone
let's
for
hear 'em.
fraud, I cannot do that by presenting the facts of a car accident. So what happened here regarding the alleged corona pandemic? The facts laid out below are to a large extent the result of the work of the Corona Investigative Committee. This committee was founded.
Wait. So this isn't just like an anti-vaccine or whatever. This is actually somebody denying that the coronavirus. So when he okay, I wish he would have laid out what his argument really was at the beginning. It sounds like he's denying that coronavirus is even a thing. I'm not sure. Does that sound like that to you guys? That's what it sounds like he's saying right now. And I don't know. Does anybody out there actually doubt that this is a virus? I don't think. No, maybe I'm reading him wrong.
Founded on July 10th by 4 lawyers in order to determine, through hearing expert testimony of international scientists and other experts, 1, how dangerous is the virus really? 2, what is the significance of a positive PCR test? 3, what collateral damage has been caused by the corona measures, both with respect to the world's population's health
Right.
and with respect to the world's economy? Let me start with a little bit of background information. What happened in May 2019 and then in early 2020, and what happened 12 years earlier with the swine flu, which many of you may have forgotten about? In May of 2019,
Hey. Us in Arizona didn't forget about that swine flu. The media didn't talk much about this, and I think very much for political reasons, but we had very many young, healthy people die from that in Arizona. In case you guys didn't know, that was and again, this is another one where it was the response to the virus that was really killing people. So the healthiest people were dying from it. It was pretty crazy.
the stronger of the two parties which govern Germany in a grand coalition, the CDU, held a Congress on Global Health, apparently at the instigation of important players from the pharmaceutical industry and the tech industry.
Oh, here comes
This
the
Congress,
big pharma
the usual
conspiracy
suspects, you might
theory
say,
again.
gave their speeches. Angela Merkel was there and the German Secretary of Health, Jens Spahn. But some
You will never hear me apologize for Angela Merkel. I can't stand that theocratic pile of crap.
other people whom one would not necessarily expect to be present at such a gathering were also there. Professor Drosten, virologist from the Charité Hospital in Berlin, Professor Wheeler, veterinarian and head of the RKI, the German equivalent of the CDC, as well as Mr. Tedros, philosopher and head of the World Health Organization.
To hell with Dr. Tedros.
They all
To
gave
hell with
speeches
him.
there. Also present and giving speeches were the chief lobbyists of the world's two largest health funds, namely the Bill.
All right, I'm just going to go to double speed, I think, because, or something a little bit faster. It sounds like he's just spouting out some Bilderberger, MK Ultra, big pharma conspiracy nonsense. So let's go until he finds some science. My friend was worried about the science claims in this video, and that's what I want to get to.
Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and the Wellcome Trust. Less than a year later, these very people called the shots in the proclamation of the worldwide corona pandemic, made sure that mass PCR tests were used to prove mass infections with COVID-19 all over the world, and are now pushing for vaccines to be invented and sold worldwide. These infections, or rather the positive test results that the PCR tests delivered,
Wait, how old is this? This video sounds like it is way out of date. We don't care about PCR tests, and he keeps talking about PCR tests. We did at the very beginning, sort of. I think something weird's going on. And now he's talking about having vaccines being invented. We have vaccines now. I think this video might be way out of date. Hold on. Let's see.
In turn became the justification for worldwide lockdowns, social distancing, and mandatory face masks. It is important to note at this point that the definition of a pandemic was changed 12 years earlier. Until then, a pandemic was considered to be a disease that spread worldwide and which led to many serious illnesses and deaths. Suddenly, and for reasons never explained, it was supposed to be a worldwide disease only. Many serious illnesses and many deaths were not required anymore to announce a pandemic.
Don't care.
Due to this change, the WHO, which is closely intertwined with the global pharmaceutical industry, was able to declare the swine flu pandemic in 2009, with the result that vaccines were produced and sold worldwide on the basis of contracts that have been kept secret until today. These vaccines proved to be completely unnecessary because the swine flu eventually turned out to be a mild flu and never became the horrific.
Holy crap. Okay. There was nothing mild about the 2009 swine flu. You be glad you didn't get it, and be glad that even back then you were too old to die of this thing. It was not a mild flu, not by any stretch of imagination. And I'm sure the whole state of Arizona would give you a middle finger about that thing. So go suck it.
Plague that the pharmaceutical industry and its affiliated universities kept announcing it would turn into, with millions of deaths certain to happen if people didn't get vaccinated. These vaccines also led to serious health problems. About 700 children in Europe fell incurably ill with narcolepsy and are now forever severely disabled.
Is that
vaccines
true?
Bought with millions.
Is that true? Swine flu vaccine caused, 700? That's not actually that much. It might be the background of Guillain-Barré, actually. Swine flu vaccine, 700 incurable. Let's see what we find. That evidence grows. So in 2013, oh, that's BuzzFeed. This is sort of Reuters. Maybe that's Mr. Zlu's fight to stop. Looks like it happened. So this looks like, there's a background. Vaccines have side effects. Sorry, compared to actually getting the disease. So it looks like. Yeah, this just looks like science. They found something wrong with this. They got rid of it. That doesn't mean that all vaccines are bad. This is some kind of like hasty generalization fallacy going on here. I'm just going to grant him all his dumb conspiracy crap, but let's see.
Millions of taxpayers' money had to be destroyed with even more taxpayers' money. Already then, during the swine flu, the German virologist Drosten was one of those who stirred up panic in the population, repeating over and over again that the swine flu would claim many hundreds of thousands, even millions of deaths all over the world. In the end, it was mainly thanks to Dr. Wolfgang Wodak and his efforts as a member of the German Bundestag and also a member of the Council of Europe that this hoax was brought to an end before it would lead to even more serious consequences.
The swine flu is not a hoax. We can
when
just
the
go
German
on,
Bundestag
though, right?
announced an epidemic situation of national importance, which is the German equivalent of a pandemic, in March of 2020, and based on this, the lockdown with the suspension of all essential constitutional rights for an unforeseeable time, there was only one single opinion on which the federal government in Germany based its decision. In an outrageous violation of the universally accepted principle audiatur et altera pars, which means that one must also hear the other side, the only person they listened to was Mr. Drosten. That is the very person whose horrific, panic-inducing prognoses had proved to be catastrophically false 12 years earlier. We know this because a whistleblower named David Sieber, a member of the Green Party, told us about it. He did so first on August 29, 2020 in Berlin, in the context of an event at which Robert F. Kennedy Jr. also took part, and at which both men gave speeches. And
You hear the regular conspiracy stuff, right? Oh, here comes the Kennedys. Here come the Kennedys. Watch, the Roosevelts will be on there soon, and yeah, don't worry. LBJ will be on there soon.
did so afterwards in one of the sessions of our Corona Committee. The reason he did this is that he had become increasingly skeptical about the official narrative propagated by politicians and the mainstream media. He had therefore undertaken an effort to find out about other scientists' opinions and had found them on the internet. There, he realized that there were a number of highly renowned scientists who held a completely different opinion, which contradicted the horrific prognoses of Mr. Drusen. They assumed, and still do assume, that there was no disease that went beyond the gravity of the seasonal flu, that the population had already acquired cross or T-cell immunity against this allegedly new virus, and that there was...
Well, we know that wasn't the truth, right? Okay, we know that is completely wrong at this point. So this video is way out of date. Turned out that this guy's predictions and claims were not true, but let's go
Therefore,
on.
no reason for any special measures, and certainly not for vaccinations. These scientists include...
You're really going to say that a viral pandemic, there's no case for vaccinations? I don't believe you. That sounds like some grade A dumb, but let's go on here. Sorry, still trying to relace a rim, and I'm really not good at lacing spokes.
Professor John Ioannidis of Stanford University in California, a specialist in statistics and epidemiology, as well as public health, and at the same time the most quoted scientist in the world. Professor Michael Levitt, Nobel Prize winner for chemistry, and also a biophysicist at Stanford University. The German professors Kari Mölling, Susharit Bhakti, Knut Witkowski, as well as Stefan Homburg.
How much does this sound like when creationists say, hey, this guy Michael Behe, he's a scientist and he doesn't believe in this crap? Hold on, let me see what's going on here. Hello? Yeah, I'm in 12 minutes into this video. Yeah, but I got it at double speed now. But yeah, I'm on my YouTube. I took it off of ours. But yeah, I gotta go. Now there's people actually watching. All right, bye. All right. Bye.
And now many more scientists and doctors worldwide, including Dr.
So,
Mike.
have you ever seen? There's I think it's called the Steve's Project. Because what they do is they cherry pick nuts. They'll find they find some nut scientists who will go, and then they'll like, I'm on a special plead. It's this guy, and they'll start name dropping and quote mining and stuff. Yeah, here it is. It's called Project Steve. So in Project Steve, because some nut job creationist was able to get a list of alleged scientists who didn't believe in evolution, and so this Project Steve is a list of scientists with the given name Stephen or a variation thereof who support evolution. It was originally created by the National Center for Science Education. I think that's Eugenie Scott, right? As a tongue-in-cheek parody of a creationist attempt to collect a list of scientists who doubt evolution, such as Answers in Genesis, lists of scientists who accept the biblical account of the Genesis creation narrative of the Discovery or the Discovery Institute's A Scientific Descent from Darwinism. The list pokes fun at such endeavors while making it clear that we do not wish to mislead the public into thinking that scientific issues are decided by who has the longer list of scientists. So I don't know how many fallacies this guy is spouting out. The way you do science is by showing reproducible evidence. I like the way, like Tom Jump says, novel testable predictions. You know, that's science. Talking about how many people believe or don't believe in something, that's just ninnies. All right, so here you go. Let's just move on.
Dr. Mike Yeadon is the former vice president in scientific...
So I suppose we're just going to go and quote mine a bunch of, you know, who knows? Because sometimes when these guys are quote mined, it turns out they didn't say that in the first place. But let's just extend the principle of charity and say, yes, there's some nuts out there. And he's just going to list some nuts. So hopefully we're going to be through this pretty fast.
Director of Pfizer, one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world. And we'll talk some more about him a little later. At the end of March, beginning of April of 2020, Mr. Siebert turned to the leadership of his Green Party with the knowledge he had accumulated,
so politics.
and suggested that they present these other scientific opinions to the public and explain that, contrary to Mr. Drosden's doomsday prophecies, there was no reason for the public to panic. Incidentally, Lord Sumption, who served as a judge at the British Supreme Court from 2012 to 2018, had done the very same thing at the very same time and had come to the very same conclusion, that there was no factual basis for panic and no legal basis for the corona measures. Likewise, the former president of the German Federal Constitutional Court expressed, albeit more cautiously, serious doubts that the corona measures were constitutional. But instead of taking note of these other opinions and discussing them with David Sieber, the Green Party leadership declared that Mr. Drosten's panic messages were good enough for the German party, for the Green Party.
Still no science.
They're not
Let's
a
get to
member
the
of the
science.
ruling coalition. They're the opposition. Still, that was enough for them. Just as it had been good enough for the federal government as a basis for its lockdown decision, they said. They subsequently, the Green Party leadership, called David Sieber a conspiracy theorist without ever having considered the content of his information and then stripped him of his mandates. Now let's take a look at the current actual situation regarding the virus's danger, the complete uselessness of PCR tests for the detection of infections, and the lockdowns based on non-existent infections. In the meantime, we know that the healthcare systems were never in danger of becoming overwhelmed by COVID-19. On the contrary, many hospitals remain empty to this day, and some are now facing bankruptcy.
Yeah, because you can't do essential operations when you're spreading disease. This is, oh my God.
The hospital ship Comfort, which anchored in New York at the time and could have accommodated 1,000 patients, never accommodated more than some 20 patients. Nowhere was there any excess mortality. Studies carried out by Professor Ioannidis and others.
So all those people just being wheeled around in Italy, that was nothing, right? Refrigerator trucks coming to pick up dead bodies in New York, that was nothing, right? Nurses having to just dying on the front lines, that was nothing, right? There was never any excess in the hospital. And, you know, now we know this thing is old, because right now this guy would be cheering up and down for how bad Cuomo's getting taken to task right now. So, yeah.
Have shown that the mortality of corona is equivalent to that of the seasonal flu. Even the pictures from Bergamo and
Who showed? Which papers are those? Let me see. Which peer-reviewed papers are those?
Out by Professor Ioannidis and others have shown that the mortality of corona is nowhere was there any excess mortality. Studies carried out by Professor Ioannidis and others have shown that the mortality of corona is equivalent to that of the seasonal flu. Even the pictures.
Okay, again, we covered this earlier, right? Nobody's talking about death in this. Well, I mean that's not the main scientific problem with this virus, is it? Death. If 10% of the people died from this virus, it would actually be better for us. We'd get through the economic stuff pretty quickly because we don't have to pay for these people who are compromised for their entire lives. So we don't need to talk about mortality. That is not the discussion. If that's the discussion you're having, you're not having the discussion that science is having. So let's not talk about mortality. And let's stop comparing, well, you can compare it to the flu if you want.
Pictures from Bergamo and New York that were used to demonstrate to the world that panic was in order proved to be deliberately misleading. Then, the so-called panic paper was leaked, which was written by the German Department of the Interior. Its classified content shows beyond a shadow of a doubt that, in fact, the population was deliberately driven to panic by politicians and mainstream media. The accompanying irresponsible statements of the head of the RKI, remember the CDC, Mr. Wheeler, who repeatedly and excitedly announced that the corona measures must be followed unconditionally by the population without them asking any question, shows that he followed the script verbatim. In his public statement.
Well, hey, it's Germany and they're telling people they need to follow a script without asking any questions. Hey, I'm not surprised. And I don't care, because this has nothing to do with the science.
He kept announcing that the situation was very grave and threatening, although the figures compiled by his own institute proved the exact opposite. Among other things, the panic paper calls for children to be made to feel responsible, and I quote, for the painful, tortured deaths of their parents and grandparents if they do not follow the corona rules. That is, if they do not wash their hands constantly and don't stay away from their grandparents. A word of clarification. In Bergamo, the vast majority of deaths, 94% to be exact, turned out to be the result not of COVID-19, but rather the consequence of the government deciding to transfer sick patients, sick with probably the cold or seasonal flu, from hospitals to nursing homes in order to make room.
Well, that didn't turn out so well for you, did it? That was one of the ones where we could absolutely, positively say that, yeah, sticking coronavirus patients into old people's homes was not a good idea. And again, we're not talking about deaths, but hey, in this case, you want to talk about deaths? Holy crap, dude. I hope that there's a video someplace out there of this guy apologizing for being such a dumbass when it came to this statistic right here. I'm sure he's issued a retraction someplace as the good lawyer that he is, right? I'm sure. Anybody who can find that for me, let me know, put it in the chat and I will post it.
At the hospitals for all the COVID patients who ultimately never arrived. There, at the nursing homes, they then infected old people with a severely weakened immune system, usually as a result of pre-existing medical conditions. In addition, a flu vaccination, which had previously been administered, had further weakened the immune systems of the people in the nursing homes. In New York, only some, but by far not all hospitals were overwhelmed. Many people, most of whom were, again, elderly and had serious pre-existing medical conditions, and most of whom, had it not been for the panic mongering, would have just stayed at home
Otherwise known as Americans.
to recover, raced to the hospitals. There, many of them fell victim to healthcare-associated infections or nosocomial infections on the one hand, and incidents of malpractice on the other hand. For example, by being put on a respirator rather than receiving oxygen through an oxygen mask. Again, to clarify, COVID-19, this is the current state of affairs, is a dangerous disease, just like the seasonal flu is a dangerous disease. And of course, COVID-19, just like the seasonal flu, may sometimes take a severe clinical course and will sometimes kill patients. However,
as we've seen, the death isn't the problem. You keep talking about death.
Autopsies have shown, which were carried out in Germany in particular by the forensic scientist Professor Klaus Püschel in Hamburg, the fatalities he examined had almost all been caused by serious pre-existing conditions, and almost all of the people who had died at a very old age, just like in Italy, meaning they had lived beyond their average life expectancy. In this context, the following should also be mentioned. The German RKI, that is, again, the equivalent of the CDC, had initially, strangely enough, recommended that no autopsies be performed. And there are numerous credible reports that doctors and hospitals worldwide had been paid money for declaring a deceased person a victim of COVID-19 rather than writing down the true cause of death
This
on
one's
the death
still going.
certificate. For example, a heart attack or a gunshot wound. Without the autopsies, we would never know that the overwhelming majority of the alleged COVID-19 victims had died of completely different diseases, but not of COVID-19. The assertion that the lockdown was necessary because there were so many differences with SARS-CoV-2 and because the healthcare systems would be overwhelmed is wrong for three reasons, as we have learned from the hearings we conducted with the Corona Committee and from other data that has become available in the meantime. A, the lockdown was imposed when the virus was already retreating. By the time lockdown was imposed, the alleged infection
How old
rates
is
were
this
already
thing,
dropping
man?
again.
What, but you didn't see that,
There's
huh?
already protection from the virus because of cross or T-cell immunity.
Nope.
Apart from the above-mentioned lockdown being imposed when the infection rates were already dropping,
Oh,
there's
man,
also
this thing is so
cross or
out of
T-cell
date.
immunity in the general population against the coronavirus.
No, there wasn't.
Contained in every flu or influenza wave. This is
It's
true.
not the
even
flu, this is a
time around,
coronavirus.
A slightly different strain of the coronavirus was at work, and that is because the body's own immune system remembers every virus it has ever battled in the past, and from this experience,
No. There's a reason we get booster shots. Okay, tell you what, Mr. Lawyer, never get another tetanus shot as long as you live, okay? Since it remembers everything. You know, tetanus could be a bacteria for all I know, but it's the same principle. That's not how our immune system works.
it also recognizes a supposedly new, but still similar, strain of the virus from the corona family. Incidentally, that's how the PCR test for the detection of an infection was invented by now infamous Professor Drosten. At the beginning of January of 2020, based on this very basic knowledge, Mr. Drosten developed his PCR test, which supposedly detects an infection with SARS-CoV-2.
No,
Without ever
no.
having seen
Who
the
said
real
that?
Wuhan virus.
Who said that? That is not what a PCR test does. And yeah, otherwise, oh man, I don't even know where to begin with this.
From China, only having learned from social media reports that there was something going on in Wuhan, he started tinkering on his computer with what would become his corona PCR test. For this, he used an old SARS virus, hoping it would be sufficiently similar to the allegedly new strain of the coronavirus found in Wuhan. Then,
Wait, are we just going to deny the fact that we actually knew this virus was already out there at least as far back as 2015? We knew that there were some horseshoe bat viruses that were just as likely as the other SARS variants to cross into humans, and that there kept being papers published that said, hey, we have to think about what we're doing about these Chinese wet markets, and you know, there was actually several, and I'm sure they're still ongoing, where people do virological assays of, like, you know, caves and just take a look, because we're always worried about spillover from the what do you call it, zoonotic infection, like the animals viruses get into the human populations, and this particular coronavirus, or something very, very close to it, was well known in 2015, and we were warned about it. So are you saying that there's not, like, these viruses don't happen? I mean, look at MERS, man. We're lucky we dodged a bullet on MERS. At least so far we've dodged a bullet on MERS. But now, because of all that's gone on, we may be able to make vaccines quick enough that when these things come up, we can actually just substitute some parts and make us some vaccines. So I don't even know where this guy's going.
he sent the result of his computer tinkering to China to determine whether the victims of the alleged new coronavirus tested positive. They did. And that was it.
All right, so this is so old. There is no alleged new. We know that there's a coronavirus. The alleged new coronavirus The thing's been sequenced. Actually, I bet you whenever this dumb video was made, the virus was already sequenced, and this guy just doesn't understand what the hell he's talking about. But who knows? Let's just give him the benefit of the doubt.
Enough for the World Health Organization to sound the pandemic alarm and to recommend the worldwide use of the Drosten PCR test for the detection of infections with the virus now called SARS-CoV-2. Drosten's opinion and advice was, this must be emphasized once again, the only source for the German government when it announced the lockdown, as well as the rules for social distancing and the mandatory wearing of masks. And this must also be emphasized once again, Germany apparently became the center of especially massive lobbying by the pharmaceutical and tech industry because the world, with reference to the allegedly disciplined Germans, should do as the Germans do in order to survive the pandemic.
Okay, and again, we've seen that that's wrong. Korea, Japan, and especially New Zealand showed what you can do to knock down one of these things without completely annihilating your movement and stuff. Germany, not so much. Germany acts how Germany does. Germany failed this. And this whole narrative is nonsense.
And this is the most important part of our fact-finding. The PCR test is being used on the basis of false statements, not based on scientific facts with respect to infections. In the meantime, we have learned that these PCR tests, contrary to the assertions of Messrs. Drosten, Wheeler, and the WHO, do not give any indication of an infection with any virus, let alone an infection.
Okay, this guy's making a lot of claims. I don't see a lot of papers. Show me a paper where somebody's saying that this is how you detect if somebody's infected with the coronavirus. Because that's not what a PCR test is going to tell you.
Infection with SARS-CoV-2. Not only are PCR tests expressly not approved for diagnostic purposes, as is correctly noted on leaflets coming with these tests, and as the inventor of the PCR test, Kerry Mullis, has repeatedly emphasized. Instead,
there you go. So why do you keep saying this? I haven't seen anybody say this. Who's out there saying this?
Of diagnosing any disease. That is, contrary to the assertions of Drosten.
No. Contrary to your assertions, nobody is out there diagnosing COVID-19 with the PCR test. That's not what PCR tests do. That's like saying there's no gas in this gas tank, therefore he must have gone to 76 and bought that instead of Chevron gas. That's not how this works.
Wheeler and the WHO, which they have been making since the proclamation of the pandemic, a positive PCR test result does not mean that an infection is present.
Right.
If someone tests positive, it does not mean that they're infected with anything, let alone with a contagious
So shut up and stop saying that they said that.
Even the United States CDC, even this institution says
this is such an irrelevant
agrees with this, and I quote directly from page 38 of one of its publications on the coronavirus.
I'm just letting it run because I don't want you guys to think I'm cherry picking this guy's stupidity, and I want to show it in his full glory. I had to come into this video with an open mind, but sorry, it's just crackpot bullshit. Sorry, whoever I said crackpot bullshit. I didn't say the word, so.
Of infectious virus, or that 2019 nCoV is the causative agent for clinical symptoms. Second bullet point says, the performance of this test has not been established for monitoring treatment of 2019 nCoV infection. Third bullet point says, this test cannot rule out diseases caused by other bacterial or viral pathogens.
And nobody said it did.
It is still not clear whether there has ever been a scientifically correct isolation of the Wuhan virus, so that nobody knows exactly what we're looking for when we test, especially since this virus, just like the flu viruses, mutates quickly. The PCR swabs take one or two sequences.
That's where we got lucky. So in case you guys didn't know, there are variants because people are greedy pig piles of crap and decide that they have to go traveling around for no reason and spreading, helping evolution on its way to make this virus stronger by being greedy pigs, and while everybody else is suffering, flying around and spreading this crap. So yeah, there are variants, but it's been amazing how stable this virus is, which is where we're really lucky that otherwise our vaccines right now could end up looking like HIV vaccine attempts, where there's just, it mutates so fast we don't have a hope. And that doesn't mean that we're out of the woods. Because cats can get this virus, there's a chance that it could spill back over into like, one of our dogs or cats as a reservoir, get real strong again, and then jump back into the human population. So, but the fact is, this thing has changed so very little that we've been lucky so far, actually. It's different, but if you go to Trevor Bedford's site, he does a tracing of the of where it's he has, I'm not sure if we still have, where's the, yeah, next strain. Here we go. Next strain had a coronavirus one that would show you, and this is one of the guys on the scene to really pull off, man, I don't even know how to find it anymore, but he was showing the genetic diversity, and he was able to show that a few of the original cases in Washington State, exactly what was going on here. I can't remember. Yeah, I wish I could find this for you, but he had an actual genetic family tree going. Let's see. Sorry that I wasn't prepared. I didn't know that this was the kind of crap this guy would be saying. Otherwise, I would have had this thing prepared for you. I don't know what the hell. He's got a spinning ball. Anyway, let me just go back. Let's just go on. Hopefully,
Of
we get
a
to some
molecule
science.
that are invisible to the human eye and therefore need to be amplified in many cycles to make it visible. Everything over 35 cycles is, as reported by the New York Times and others, considered completely unreliable and scientifically unjustifiable. However, the Drosten test, as well as the WHO recommended test that followed his example, are set to 45 cycles. Can that be because of the desire to produce as many positive results as possible?
No, see, this is why, like we were talking earlier about Michael Mina's tests, that we needed a less. You can't just say that over 35 is unreliable. That's not exactly how this works. But over 35, it's very likely that this infection is long gone by then, or it's not in its replicating phase at that point, and that's the problem. So if we really wanted, early on before these vaccines started coming out, we had a way out of this. At least we had a way out of the lockdown, but the politicians really didn't want to get in on it. What we were going to have to do is make a less accurate test that you took it had to be cheap too. I think Michael Mina was calling it like the $1 paper test or whatever. Or even if it was $5, it still would have saved us a pile of money. So you get a test that's not that accurate. But if you were to look at a curve, the most infectious time was where that type of test would be the most accurate. These are the antibody tests for the most part, which aren't very reliable for detecting low levels of virus. But we don't care about low levels of virus. We care about when they're massively infective. That could have given us, you could have gone to school. You take your test before school, it's done in 15 minutes. These were going to have to be like they were calling it lick-a-stick, right? It's going to be like a litmus paper test. You lick it, and then if it shows up, then you know you got it, and you don't go to school that day. You don't go to work. That's what we needed. That's not what these PCR tests are for.
And thereby provide the basis of the false assumption that a large number of infections have been detected? The test cannot distinguish inactive and reproductive matter. That means that a positive result may happen because the test detects, for example, a piece of debris.
That is true. Okay, so that's the whole point, right? Okay, but
which may signal nothing else than that the immune system of the person tested won a battle with a common cold in the past.
No.
Even Drosten himself declared in an interview with a German business magazine in 2014, at that time concerning the alleged detection of an infection with the MERS virus, allegedly with the help of a PCR test, that these PCR tests are so highly sensitive that even very healthy and non-infectious people may test positive.
Yes.
At that time, he also
That's why
became
it's
very
not
much
what we
aware
use to
of the powerful
diagnose the
role of panic
disease.
and fear-mongering media, as you'll see at the end of the following quote. He said then, in this interview, if, for example, such a pathogen scurries over the nasal mucosa of a nurse for a day or so without her getting sick or noticing anything, then she's suddenly a MERS case. This could also explain the explosion of case numbers in Saudi Arabia. In addition, the media there have made this into an incredible sensation. Has he forgotten this, or is deliberately concealing this in the corona context? Because corona
If you don't think MERS was serious,
business
I don't know where to
opportunity
start
for the
with you.
pharmaceutical industry as a whole, and for Mr. Alfred Lund, his co-author in many studies and also a PCR test producer. In my view, it is completely implausible that he forgot in 2020 what he knew about the PCR tests and told the business magazine in 2014.
You're strawmanning
In
this
short,
claim.
this test cannot detect any infection.
And nobody
contrary to
said
all
it
false
did.
claims
Get off
stating
this.
that it can.
Get
An
off.
infection, a so-called hot infection,
Okay.
requires
Are we gonna
that
get
the
to any
virus,
science or
rather,
what?
A fragment of a molecule, which may be a virus, is not just found somewhere, for example, in the throat of a person without causing any damage. That would be a cold infection. Rather, a hot infection requires that the virus penetrates into the cells, replicates there, and causes symptoms such as headaches or a sore throat. Only then is a person really infected in the sense of a hot infection. Because only then is a person contagious, that is, able to infect others. Until then,
we
it is
don't- that's
completely
not
harmless
necessarily
for both
true.
the host and all other people that the host comes into contact with. Once again, this means that positive test results, contrary to all other claims by Drosten, Wheeler, or the WHO, mean nothing with respect to infections, as even the CDC knows, as quoted above. Meanwhile, a number of highly respected scientists worldwide assume that there has never been a corona pandemic, but only a PCR test pandemic. This is the conclusion reached by many German scientists, such as Professors Bakti, Reis, Mölling, Hockertz, Wallach, and many others, including the above-mentioned Professor John.
Let me just pause here. So here we have an argument ad populum. The flaw in this argument, or here we go, or otherwise known as the bandwagon fallacy. You appealed to popularity or the fact that many people do something as an attempted form of validation. The flaw in this argument is that the popularity of an idea has absolutely no bearing on its validity. If it did, then the earth would have made itself flat for most of history to accommodate this popular belief. This is a textbook example of the argument ad populum here.
John Ioannidis and the Nobel laureate
Here he
Professor
goes.
Michael Levitt from Stanford University. The most recent such opinion is that of the aforementioned Dr. Mike Eden, a former vice president and chief science officer at Pfizer, who held this position for 16 years. He and his co-authors, all well-known scientists, published a scientific paper in September of 2020, and he wrote a corresponding magazine article on September 20th, 2020.
What's the name of that article? Let's see
He
it.
and they state, and I quote, "We're basing our government policy, our economic policy, and the policy of restricting fundamental rights presumably on completely wrong data and assumptions about the coronavirus. If it weren't for the test results that are constantly reported in the media, the pandemic would be over because nothing really happened. Of course, there's some serious individual cases.
This
of
didn't
illness,
age well,
but there are
did
also
it?
some in every flu epidemic. There was a real wave of disease in March and April, but since then, everything has gone back to normal. Only the positive results rise and sink wildly again and again.
Does somebody have a
depending on how
graph
many
they could
tests are
share
done.
with everybody right now? Let's see if we can't find one with the waves. What's the newest? Because at first it looked like it was like there was a wave and then it started to come down and then it just shot back up. Yeah, I don't think. How far did we get? We need something really recent. Let me see if I can find you a really recent one. What year is this? 2020. Settings, tools, time, past. Let's go past month. Yeah, see, man, as you show Korea, it's just sad because they just knocked this thing down. Yeah, I am having a trouble finding anything. It just, remember, it sort of looked like we had a wave and then it just jumped. Anyway, let me just go on. So these comments didn't age so well.
But the real cases of illnesses are over. There can be no talk of a second wave.
There can be no talk of a second wave. Listen to this guy, man. So if he got this part this wrong, do we really have to go and listen to the rest of this crap he's about to spew?
The allegedly new strain of the coronavirus is, Dr. Yeadon continues, only new in that it is a new type of the long-known coronavirus. There are at least 4 coronaviruses that are endemic and cause some of the common colds we experience, especially in winter. They all have a striking sequence similarity to the coronavirus. And because the human immune system recognizes the similarity to the virus that has now allegedly been newly discovered, T-cell immunity has long existed in this respect. 30% of the population had this before the allegedly new virus even appeared. Therefore, it is sufficient for the so-called herd immunity that 15 to 25% of the population are infected with the allegedly new coronavirus to stop the further spread of the virus. And this has long been the case. Regarding the all-important PCR tests, Yeadon writes in a piece called Lies, Damned Lies, and Health Statistics, The Deadly Danger of False Positives, dated September 20th, 2020, and I quote, "The likelihood of an apparently positive case being a false positive is between 89 to 94%, or near certainty." Dr. Yeadon, in agreement with professors of immunology Kemmerer from Germany, Capel from the Netherlands, and Cahill from Ireland, as well as the microbiologist Dr. Arve from Austria,
Here goes the
all of
argument
whom
ad
testified
populum
before
again.
the German Corona Committee, explicitly points out that a positive test does not mean that an intact virus has been found. The authors explain
Nobody
that
said
what
that.
PCR test
Again,
actually
you're
measures
still
is,
another straw
and I
man
quote,
that you
simply
keep
the presence
spitting
of
out.
partial RNA
Move
sequences
on.
present in the intact virus,
Yes,
which
we
could
know
be a
that.
piece of
You
dead
said that
virus which cannot make
500,000
subjects
times,
sick
and
and
it's-
cannot be transmitted and cannot make anyone else sick. Because of the complete unsuitability of the test for the detection of infectious diseases, tested
Nobody's
positive
using
goats,
this test to
papayas,
detect
and even
infectious
chicken wings.
diseases.
Oxford
Stop, get
Professor
off
Paul
of
Hagen,
this.
director of the Center for Evidence-Based Medicine, writes that the COVID virus would never disappear if this test practice were to be continued, but would always be, falsely, detected in much of what is tested. Lockdowns, as Eden and his colleagues found out, do not work. Sweden, with its
not
laissez-faire
true.
approach, and Great Britain, with its strict lockdown, for example, have completely comparable disease and mortality statistics.
Nope.
The same was found by U.S. scientists concerning the different U.S. states. It makes no
Nope.
difference to the incidence of disease whether a state implements a lockdown or not.
Nope.
With regard to the now infamous Imperial College of London's Professor Neil Ferguson and his completely false computer models warning of millions of deaths, he says that, and I quote, "No
And
serious
millions of
scientist
deaths didn't
gives
happen,
any
huh?
validity to Ferguson's model." He points out with thinly veiled contempt, again I quote, "It's important that you know most scientists don't accept that it," that is Ferguson's model, "was even faintly right, but the government is still wedded to the model." Ferguson predicted 40,000 corona deaths in Sweden by May and 100,000 by June, but it remained at 5,800, which, according to the Swedish authorities, is
Nobody's
equivalent to
talking
a
about
mild
deaths.
flu. If the PCR tests had not been used as a diagnostic tool for corona infections, there would not be a pandemic. And there would be no lockdowns, but everything would have been perceived as just a medium or light wave of influenza, these scientists conclude. Dr. Yeadon, in his piece Lies, Damned Lies and Health Statistics, The Deadly Danger of False Positives, writes, "This test is fatally flawed and must immediately be withdrawn and never used again in this setting unless shown to be fixed."
Nobody's
And
diagnosing
towards the end of the
coronavirus
article,
with the
I
PCR
have
test.
explained
Stop
how
this.
a hopelessly performing diagnostic test has been and continues to be used not for diagnosis of disease, but, it seems, solely to create fear. Now, let's take a look at the current actual situation regarding the severe damage caused by the lockdowns and other measures. Another detailed paper, written by a German official in the Department of the Interior, who is responsible for risk assessment and the protection of the population against risks, was leaked recently. It is now called the false alarm paper. This paper comes to the conclusion that there was and is no sufficient evidence for serious health risks for the population as claimed by Drosten.
We don't even need to talk about
But,
this,
the
right?
author says, there's very much evidence of the
So
corona
I'm
measures
gonna
causing
speed this
gigantic
up and let's see if
health
we get to
economic
any
damage the
science.
population, which he then describes
I
in
don't
detail
think we
in
will.
this paper. This, he concludes, will lead to very high claims for damages which the government will be held responsible for. This has now become reality, but the paper's author was suspended. More and more scientists, but also lawyers, recognize that as a result of the deliberate panic-mongering and the corona measures enabled by this panic, democracy is in great danger of being replaced by fascist totalitarian models. As I already mentioned above, in Australia, people who do not wear the masks, which more and more studies show are hazardous to health, or who allegedly do not wear them correctly, are arrested,
No study has shown that. You just bullshit.
handcuffed, and thrown into jail. In the Philippines, they run the risk of getting shot. But even in
So
Germany,
some of you guys will remember that at the beginning of this, when a bunch of babies were saying they couldn't do their exercises in masks or whatever, I got on my bike and I was doing 360s and foot plant tail whips and hang fives and everything else with my mask on. So you guys can suck it. You guys weenies.
Germany and in other previously civilized countries, children are taken away from their parents if they do not comply with quarantine regulations, distance regulations, and mask-wearing regulations. According to psychologists and psychotherapists who testified before the Corona Committee, children are traumatized en masse, with the worst psychological consequences yet to be expected in the medium and long term. In Germany alone, 500,000 to 800,000 bankruptcies are expected in the fall to strike small and medium-sized businesses, which form
And
the backbone of the
imagine what it would have
This
been
will
like if
result
we
in
didn't do
calculated
anything
tax
about it.
losses
You
and
guys have
cutting
no
high and
idea
long-term social
what the
security money transfers
long-term
for
economic consequences of even the
Since in
cases
meantime,
we
pretty much
got are
everybody
going to
begins
be.
to understand the full devastating impact of the completely unfounded corona measures, I will refrain from detailing this any further.
Okay.
Let me now give you a summary of the legal consequences.
I don't
Most
care about
difficult
the
part of
legal
lawyers' work is
consequences.
always
Let's
to
look at the
establish true
science.
facts, not the application of the legal rules to these facts. Unfortunately, a German lawyer does not learn this at law school, but his Anglo-American counterparts do get the necessary training for this at their law schools. And probably for this reason, but also because of the much more pronounced independence of the Anglo-American judiciary, the Anglo-American law of evidence is much more effective in practice than the German one. A court of law can only decide a legal dispute correctly if it has previously determined the facts correctly, which is not possible without looking at all the evidence. And that's why the law of evidence is so important. On the basis of the facts summarized above, in particular those established with the help of the work of the German Corona Committee, the legal evaluation is actually simple. It is simple for all civilized legal systems, regardless of whether these legal systems are based on civil law, which follows the Roman law more closely, or whether they're based on Anglo-American common law, which is only loosely connected to Roman law. Let's first take a look at the unconstitutionality of the measures. A number of German law professors, including Professors Schöngreen, Morswig, Jungblut, and Fosgerau, have stated either in written expert opinions or in interviews, in line with the serious doubts expressed by the former president of the Federal Constitutional Court with respect to the constitutionality of the corona measures, that these measures, the corona measures, are without a sufficient factual basis and also without a sufficient legal basis, and are therefore unconstitutional and must be
I
reviewed.
don't think this is the right
Very recently, a judge
video the guy
forced
meant to
judge
send me. This has
very
nothing about the
publicly that
vaccine.
judiciary,
Does it
just like
get
the
to a vaccine? I'm
potential
sorry,
social
guys. I'm
damage
just.
against humanity. Based on the rules of criminal law, asserting false facts The civil tort law, all those who have
Law.
it enables a court of law to allow a representative plaintiff who is affected in a manner typical of other non-German plaintiffs, but this proves to be unmanageable. However, through an international law of the faces of all those responsible for these crimes, to the politicians who believe those corrupt people, these facts are hereby offered as a lifeline that can help you readjust your
All right, sorry guys. There was actually no science and especially no actual anti-vax stuff in this video. That's what I thought it was going to be about. There's just some conspiracy nut who's probably moved on to legislating against fluoride or Monsanto or something. Yeah, though, if anybody out there can find a, I'd like to see what this guy says about all his failed predictions, because that'd be nice to see if he's got the balls to say, hey, sorry, I was wrong about no second wave. So, I don't know. This is crap. I'm going to go back to fixing my wheel. See you guys later.